look like V2s. Some are different. Odd. There's a little, I guess the two little, one larger, one smaller, on the upper right at 2 o'clock. That's some grape shot. A little spillover.
Those are external reference points. And if you track the number of pixels to each of those and use those as offsets, you get an entirely different set of images.
Oh.
Yeah, I was shocked too.
Gee. We'll come back in a minute. In the meantime, go ahead and view this video. It's 2:12 long. We'll take a break and return with Clif. All right, let's get right back to Clif. Now, I've watched this, and
Not a zombie yet.
Yet?
Interesting, huh?
Fascinating. I'm looking at the reference points. Now, you're not reversing direction on this thing?
No. What I'm doing is accelerating a slider bar that goes from 0 to 100.
Okay.
And that's the little thing at the top of the picture.
I got it.
And then at the end, I just reverse it to take it back down to 0 and stop it, but I do that in a very short period of time.
So the slider bar at the top is the actual speed, the RPM.
Correct.
Which this thing is going at. But it doesn't change direction, ladies and gentlemen. It's going counterclockwise, I assume.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. And you're just speeding it up and slowing it down. And look what it does. At various points in this cell phone-made video of one of a dozen examples that they've worked with so far in terms of crop formations, this thing, this shape, does more things than I could describe to you. It changes directions, portions of it, reverse. All right.
Multiple layers of spin.
I am ready
multiple concentric circles
surrender.
With different geometrics.
Take me to your leisure.
Interesting, huh?
It's not the one at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, please.
No, this is something else. We also have a guy in Belgium who's working with an entirely different set of crop circles and, for that matter, a different software. And he reports that, he's a long-time meditator, and he says he can easily, with this one particular one, easily go into alpha state.
Really?
Yeah,
well, I don't see why not.
I mean, he's reporting it, and I'll say it, but it could just be placebo effect and, wishful thinking, but he's reporting that the arthritis in his knees is better. And it's like, well, okay, that's fine. We'll wait until we've got a few 100,000 people that say their arthritic knees are better from watching that crop circle before we make any hard
maybe some people will end up.
Nonetheless, he says this is just a cool thing.
Well, at the very least, it is. And
seeing it with the video doesn't really do it justice, because there actually is, with the persistence of human vision when looking at the software from a flat screen, a three-dimensional effect. And we even have one of them that is one of the irregulars, asymmetric. It doesn't appear just from looking at it. It's one of the long, thin crop circle formations, and it doesn't appear just from looking at it that it was intended to span or that there's a central point. But if you measure it right down in the middle, there's this nice handy little dot. You put it in there and start spinning it, and you get a geometry that is regular and centered, unlike the crop circle itself. And even in black and white, you get tracery of colors.
Okay, I just saw some colors, didn't I?
Yes, you did, yes.
Yeah.
And it has to do with persistence of human vision and the way the photons strike the receptors, the rods and the cones, and the saccadic eye movements. Saccadic eye movements are also suspended in this. I've noticed that myself. Those are the eye movements that actually make your eyes tired when you've been reading all day. It's this forced little ritual of how your eyes sweep across the top of a word. And it's very acute under computer screens, and that's why I came up with the Vortex software, so I didn't suffer that anymore, and I could read very fast from computer screens. And I've noticed that using these crop circles, many of them almost instantly suspend the saccadic eye movement. Your eyes sort of relax, and they go soft in the martial arts sense of the word.
I got it. So this is your software, this piece that you're
Yeah, but this is open source. We're just going to be handing this out. Once we've got it to where we can compile it and it's small enough with just the required DLLs to handle the graphics, we'll just give it away free.
This is wild. You got years of research ahead of you just in this new door you've opened.
Yeah, and I wanted to take some time off.
Yeah, fat chance.
I didn't need any more work, you know.
The curse of being...
But it is quite fascinating.
Yeah, well, to say the least. I can't wait to see more of these. We'll have to do a whole program on this at some point if you want.
Sure, yeah.
That'd be fun. Wow. Do all of them evidence colors at one RPM or another?
Correct, they do. So far that I've messed with, I've only played with about 8 or 9, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'll check with the other people that have versions of the software and are trying out different ones. I've only got a particular season that I've messed with, and of course the ones I'm getting are from England and are the more popular and reported ones. The ones in Germany or ones that people in Belgium are using, the ones that have been showing up in Germany.
Well, you know what's going to happen is the hoaxers, the debunkers, are going to come forward and say, well, that's our crop formation, and you're trying to read all this stuff into it, and if you spin any complex design, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, and that's sort of partially true. Anything that was done with like a spirograph or a regular geometry where you plan that sort of thing in, or you used the irrational numbers that lead to such things as the Vesica Pisces or the other shapes that result from using a compass, would indeed tend to show regular features. However, let me point out, regardless of who makes the crop circles, so far we found that they fall into 2 categories. 80% or 70% fall into the category of having this inbuilt geometry show up or inbuilt visual effect, and then the other 30% fall flat and have nothing. And we also noticed that those are the ones that are more crude, don't have the sharpness of precision.
The fakes, the hoaxes, perhaps.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, you got through their whole explanation without saying Fibonacci.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. And the thing is that the people doing it with the strings and the sticks, it's quite evident because apparently, if we could postulate, for instance, that, all crop circles fall into 2 categories when spun. They either show flat with nothing and they're rather irregular and yucky, or they have these inbuilt designs. Well, maybe these inbuilt designs are kind of like a reference marker saying, hey, this is legit.
Listen, it sounds like the acid test as far as I'm concerned. We'll find out.
If that's the case and it's designed in, what else is designed in?
Of course.
Yeah.
Well.
Interesting, yeah. And so that's why we're handing it out. I'm too lazy to do all the work on the categorizing and all this kind of stuff, so I'm just going to let the software go as soon as we can possibly do it, hopefully by summer. And everybody can haul down the images of the crop circle and have at it, and let's all write it down and see what we've got here.
You're going to have to set up another site. You'll be
I know.
The Sultan of Swirlies. They're all going to come to your door.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. Well, so what happens when you're born brilliant? You can't run away from it.
Or bored, I think of it that way.
This is humble Clif.
No, it isn't that. It's quite seriously. I mean, you got to think about it in an appropriate way. People try and put you up on a pedestal. Ultimately, leads to a set of emotions that.
See, I don't think vertically. I think horizontally, and I've always respected creativity, brilliance, innovation, not in a vertical sense. But that's just me. Anyway.
And that's just the best way for it. Yeah. And that's the way we need to do it too. That's why we're going to check this out, because who knows? Maybe there is something in there. Maybe there's a whole lot that I'm missing.
Yep. All right, we have just about 3 minutes or so. Let's pull up the other crystal ball.
Sure.
And take a look. People want to know, what's going to happen? What's happening this summer and fall? How bad's it going to get?
It's going to get real bad after November. Looks like October 26th, we're going to hit another wall, if you will, in the economy problem.
Is that like the October 7th? You're getting that kind of a read?
Correct. That kind of...
intensity?
That sort of intensity, certainly at the emotional summations, but not the persistence and the depth of the drop. It's not as steep. Yeah, but it is more persistent because it goes from October 26th all through the remainder of 2009, all through the remainder of 2010, and just into 2011.
All the way through another year and a half, just about.
And the worst of the economic doldrums or whatever will really start showing up after July. We'll get a little bit of a
July of 09 or July
or whatever in September, and then October 26th.
I see.
It just goes bluey. It starts into international kinds of problems in early November. We're looking at something occurring in November 5th or so that will dominate the rest of November and December, and may even seemingly pull lots of the powers that be out of the United States for some kind of urgent international meetings kind of thing.
Or maybe going to a safer location?
It could be that, but I don't want to read that into it. Okay, I would much rather to focus on it as though it was a situation where, for instance, the rest of the global community got together and said, what's backing your dollar? And somebody here made the mistake of saying, well, all the gold in Fort Knox. And then they came back and said, we want it audited. And then there's all this hemming and hawing and international meetings, that sort of thing.
You know where they blew it? You remember, I don't know, it's got to be 8 or 10 years ago now when the military came out with its first major base closure program. You remember that? It goes back. It was going to save money. They were going to close a whole bunch of military. The first big cutback.
Winning the war dividend. Yeah.
That's what it was. And what was on the list? Fort Knox.
Yeah.
Whoops. Somebody wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
So I assume
interesting people, these elites. You know, they're somewhat clever, but absent-minded as well.
They do. They absolutely screw up. Okay, so to take a look, July maybe.
We're going to have this bounce here that we're currently under. I mean, the current conditions are not as bad as it's going to be later in summer. The summer is going to have all kinds of terrible weather that will reach to the point where the words undeniability, in other words, you just won't be able to deny the sad state of the climate change more than in fact that it's occurring. This is going to very negatively affect a large percentage of the population.
Well, you get farmers who are not planting.
It's going to frighten them, yes. It's going to be quite strange for them. And it's going to lead to all sorts of mental illness as a result because they just won't be able to cope in the short term.
And lots of antidepressants and more mass shootings.
And at the same time, we're going to have more layoffs, you know, less money in circulation. And then all of a sudden we're going to get hyperinflation, which is theoretically still in the data for later in summer. It'll have to appear fairly sudden if that's going to be the case. But we still have the words for hyperinflation. That are the only thing that would get us out of it is if the dollar itself died as an international global reserve and we were limited to just what was in the U.S. And we wouldn't have hyperinflation because all the digital dollars would simply go poof.
Got it. Have you spun a fully color photo of a crop circle yet?
No, I haven't, because I've been working on the code. There are people that have done so, and they're, reporting alpha state effects almost instantly. And that's very hard to achieve. For meditators, it's somewhat easy, but for the average person.
Well, from one beta kind of a guy to another, even if you don't sound like it. Thank you for being here again. Great to talk with you, and thanks for sharing the crop circle swirlies. Amazing stuff, Clif.
Yes, I think so as well, and I'm just hoping that we don't all turn into zombies.
Indeed. Talk to you next
later.
time. Okay, good night.
Bye.
Clif High from halfpasthuman.com, along with his partner George Ewer. Thanks for being here tonight. We're going to take 21 hours off. We'll be with you at Rense.com and see you right back here tomorrow night.